Good evening, a very, very late evening. This is Debra V. Wilson. I am in Haifa, Israel. The date is the 10th of March 2017. By the way, happy and belated International Women's Day. And the time is 2300 hours and 55 minutes, and that's GMT plus 2. Uh, the name of this podcast is Our Activism Was an Attempt to Nuance Their Focus. There are so many things. I started traveling from the U.S. on the 5th of March, and then I landed in Haifa, in Israel, Tel Aviv it was, the Garant Airport on the 7th of March. And in that time period, it seems like I like to keep an eye on the news, particularly with focus on my three countries, Canada, Israel, and the UK. And it seems like in my three countries, there were a myriad of significant activity, as well as in other countries. For the moment, I am going to do a little micro-focusing on the UK. And in that micro-focus, I hope to inform and expound on a larger understanding of security. Again, the name of this podcast is Our Activism Was an Attempt to Nuance Their Focus. MI6, that's a British intelligence service. It's the secret intelligence service, and it's headed by Alex Younger, has recently released a new recruitment tape, a recruitment pitch. And they'll be recruiting playing with a video in the cinemas. So the goal is, if you, according to the Director General of MI6, is to cast a wider net of possible recruits and to perk interest from a wider surrounding net, from a wider possibility of people. For me personally, I find the new recruitment strategy, and I won't say this often about very many intelligence agencies, interestingly promising. Many years ago in London, England, as you know, I did quite a bit of activism. And there came a time when our activism took, quote unquote, a non-traditional path. As constructed by and when you look at the construct of what feminism is supposed to be. And our path became more safety. Why safety isn't constructed as a feminism, I don't know, but currently it still isn't. In any case, I was based in London, England. I was traveling back and forth as a tourist. Several times I moved to the UK and lived for extended periods of time. During this time was always London, England. In any case, we were concerned about the focus of MI5 and Special Branch. Special Branch is out the Met. We thought it was a hyper focus on the Muslim community, with the net being cast too far afield. And in addition to that, we thought they were missing other forms of extremism, such as that was emerging from some predominantly white communities, right-wing extremism. So our feminism took on an interesting turn. It was interesting for me, and we literally began setting up what could only be called intelligence sales. I belonged to one organization in particular, but actually several organizations did it, in which we divvied up the city. And we went into communities, particular communities that we were assigned to or we chose to work with. We worked with other NGOs in understanding, typically feminist-based, typically women-based, in terms of understanding what they felt was lacking in the state construct of security. We talked to communities about if they felt safe, if they thought the model was working, was it overreaching, was it underreaching? And to simplify the process, we'd do the interviews in the public, we'd get back together, bung all of our information together, it was vetted and then submitted on to the government. In the process, and I did this for more than a decade, in the process, and I'll speak from the but I will add my feminist colleagues, several things happened. We developed quite extensive networks in the city. Again, this is London, when I mean London, the capital. I learned to interview and sit with a myriad of people. I learned how to talk with people, to hear people, to understand the nuances of the particular community in which I took an interest in and a passion in. And in addition to that, utilizing my business skills, both accounting and HR work, and forensics in both those fields, I learned to put together reports that were ultimately submitted on to the state, the UK. Our intention was, our targets for the submission of that information was the Metropolitan Police, but in particular, Special Branch, and MI5, the security service. I had a particular interesting set of scenarios that every time I came in the country, I was being interviewed for 30 minutes at the max. Was always 30 minutes seemed to be the cap. I'm not sure what that was about, but they never went over 30 minutes, and they were special branch officers. They were special branch officers. So I had actually a direct pipeline, and the organizations that I was affiliated with sometimes utilized that direct pipeline to communicate information to the state in a safe, sane manner. Well, sane in quotes. The whole construct of at the airport was odd, but whatever. In any case, and the other thing I would like to add is that the communities knew what we were doing with the information. We did full disclosure. As a matter of fact, I remember telling the special branch officer at Heathrow Airport that I was going to go back and tell the feminist organization who he was and what he was, because when I asked him who he was and what he was, he asked me who did he appear to be. That was his response. So I told him I was going to go back and tell the feminist organization that he was special branch and that this wasn't an immigration officer asking me these questions. And his response was, "You do that, madam. Why don't you do that?" So from my perspective, we had full disclosure with the community, within the organizations, within our organization, the organizations we worked with, and with the state. I think something interesting happened out of that. I think a group of women, full stop, picked up skills and learned how to understand their communities and neighborhoods and, dare I say, aspects of the country in ways that the security services and the policing agencies did not anticipate that women, civilian, could do. I think that the state construct of the security models looked at the women and thought, well, here are women who are school teachers, researchers, academics, medical doctors, sociologists, accountants, HR people. And they've taken those school skills and transferred them in ways that we didn't know, we didn't imagine. And in addition, let us just go back to the fact these are women, and we would have never guessed women would have had these skill sets. And I think that the activism that occurred and was so rigorously strong in London, England, informed the security services and the Met of possibilities within its own populace, its own nationals. I think because we were so successful at it, again, every time I came into the UK, I had my bit of a chat. Seriously, that's what they called it. A bit of a chat. I was so proficient and so good at it that it got to the point then when I was exiting the country, I would get pulled out of the line, asked to step out, British talk, and because they wanted to have a bit of a chat, and they called it random. I literally snapped at this person once and said, it can't be random if it happens every time. It wasn't just me. And When this was happening, I was in my early 50s, and I'm not a British national. I always wondered the state in Britain, was there a possibility for them to expand their understanding of security, to expand their understanding of who is a patriot and how you define patriotism, that it's possible to be a left-leaning activist that challenges the current narratives of security, to make them more ethical, to make them more stealth, to make them more transparent, and still get quality intelligence. I'm not very optimistic about intelligence communities for personal reasons. That's got more to do with my personal situation. But when I see this business coming from MI5, recruiting more women, older, with a myriad of life skills, and MI6, diverse, quote unquote, recruitment, I'm wondering, have I seen a miracle here? Is this the miracle? Are there at least 2 intelligence communities on this planet that have learned, I'm not saying they changed, but learned? Because with all the work I was doing, there was a point in which MI5 wanted me to work as an informant for them. I refused. I refused because I didn't want to be an informant. I refused for another reason. It's an old construct of who has a right to be concerned about security, how we keep a nation safe. The feminism model in which I had worked in for years was directly challenging the narrative of how male patriarchal organizations tend to construct security. Why would I want to go back and participate in something I don't agree with? I didn't. I went back in 2000, that was in 2010. There's a lot of messiness in between. I went back in August of 2011 and actually met with people that I believe to be MI5 officers. After that, I won't. That's enough. But they did sit down with me. But that's all I'm going to say. In any case, this bit of a ramble from Haifa, Israel, I'm going to say it's because I'm still jet lagged. I'm also going to say I haven't got my sleep schedule straightened out yet, owing to being jet lagged. But I'm also going to say I'm curious as hell. So this new recruitment tactic and looking at skills that before weren't valued, those were soft skills, is now skills that are transferable to intelligence work. Being more expansive about who is patriotic and who can be trusted to keep the nation safe. Expanding the understanding of intellectualism, of strategic thinking, of negotiating and mediation. Did I go through the Twilight Zone, or has MI5 and MI6 specifically shifted? It's a tiny bit. It's a huge shift, but I'm not to say I'm giving them a green pass. I'm not. I don't. I've got personal baggage about security services these days. But nevertheless, I'm very curious about what I'm seeing now. This is Debra V. Wilson. I'm in Haifa, Israel, and the name of this podcast, Our Activism was an attempt to nuance their focus. Thank you.